The end of another glorious year at the Hackett's Quarry summer camp is drawing near as we look up at the full moon and listen to the howl of the wolf formerly known as Max. Today, in this special Halloween episode of Philosophy and Ethics in Games, we're finishing our journey through the Quarry and finally finding out the answers to our biggest questions. I'm your humble camp leader, Josh Bearheart Hawk, and when we last met, we found out that the Hackett family has a big, hairy secret. Before we get too far into it, if you've missed any of the previous episodes in the Philosophy and Ethics in Games series, I've linked a playlist down below. As I break down games, I add the videos to that playlist so that people like you can sit back and binge on the widest array of philosophical breakdowns on YouTube anytime you want. There's been a lot that's happened to this point in the night, and our shrinking group of counselors has been finding it harder and harder to stay out of trouble. I kind of brushed over losing Nick in the last episode, as he didn't really deserve our time, but I'll mention it briefly here because he winds up being captured by Bobby and his Pappy as we catch back up with Emma. Emma somehow survived the fall from the bridge earlier, and after checking the fire pit for any sign of her friends, she decided the best move would be to head back to the lodge. She was almost there when she came across the pair of men that she and the others had been ducking all night, and try as she might, she wasn't able to sneak by unseen. But they aren't able to catch her, mainly thanks to a second werewolf that showed up just in time to get the men's attention, and we're off to a wild start here. Finding the lodge empty, Emma does the only logical thing she can think of and hides in the van out front. I'm sure she'll be safe in there for the rest of the night, and we'll probably not see her anymore until dawn. With one counselor definitely safe, we join what we can only assume is another in the form of Werewolf Nick locked away in a cellar in the red light district. It's either that or some version of hell, as I'm not really sure why anyone in their right mind would use a bright red light to illuminate any kind of regularly used space. We also get the chance to meet a lovely older woman who is, for the moment, unnamed. She is involved in things in some way because we see her approaching and taunting the trapped beast, reminding us that not all little old ladies are friendly. Before leaving the dungeon, we see Bobby dragging Jacob through the tunnel and throwing him into the cell opposite the werewolf. Honestly, this is probably the best place for Jacob, as he wasn't exactly the greatest survivor or best boyfriend. With Emma, Jacob, and Nick accounted for, we rejoin our core group as they try to decide what to do with Laura, the counselor who showed up 2 months late for her job. On the one hand, Laura has been bit, and it's only a matter of time before she turns. But on the other, she's the most informed about the situation, as she spent the summer being held in a jail cell by the brother of one of the werewolves. It's always possible she was making the whole thing up, being some deranged lunatic who just has some grudge against the Hackett family for a parking ticket Travis issued her or something. But we'll just ignore that thought and push on because we really don't have a lot of options. After a brief discussion, the group decides to split up because that's just a thing you do when you know you're in a horror movie. Laura and Ryan are going to head for the Hackett horror house that apparently sits not far from the campground, while Dylan, Caitlin, and Abby make their way back up to the lodge to see about getting the van fixed. And as Laura and Ryan make their way to the house, we have a moment to discuss this plan because while Laura is aiming to just kill Chris Hackett, Ryan is convinced that there is more to learn. He knows Chris pretty well, and he even points out that the camp leader couldn't be involved because he was the one trying to keep the counselors safe by insisting they stay inside. This isn't foolproof logic by any means, but even Laura would have to admit that there's more going on than even she knows. She's overheard the fact that Chris was the one who bit Max, but from the sound of that conversation and the way that Travis was beating around the bush, it's clear that there's likely another player in this game, and going straight for Chris could be a mistake. And this also brings in the discussion of good and evil, as Laura seems convinced that Chris Hackett is a bad person because he bit Max and because he's hiding being a werewolf. But that reasoning is flawed in so many ways. First of all, Travis told Laura and Max straight up to go to the Harbinger Motel after saving them from Max's bad driving. Then, when they ignored that advice and went to the camp anyway, Laura had to snoop around and use a hammer to break the lock off a door that was well out of the way before they even came into contact with Chris. And Travis not only saved them, but held them in a jailhouse to protect them because he knew that Max would be turning and he wanted to find some way to fix everything. And that's without even bringing up the fact that Laura lied to Max in the first place about speaking to Chris ahead of time to get permission to come up a night early. If she hadn't lied, and they had instead just gone to the camp when they were supposed to, Max wouldn't have been bit, and she wouldn't have been planning a pirate costume for Halloween. That's not to say that everything that happened was her fault, but who knows what would have happened if they had been there through the summer. Maybe the group of counselors wouldn't have been short-handed, causing them to run behind schedule and allowing Jacob the chance to sabotage the van. Maybe they could have all gotten out of there on time and we wouldn't be racing the clock to save so many lives. We do know that Kaylee Hackett would be alive, as she's the one that Laura shot in the pool. She thought the werewolf was Chris because she didn't know that there was more than one, and that brings us right back around to where we started this diatribe, as she doesn't have enough information and would rather shoot first and ask questions later. At the same time, Travis Hackett shoulders even more blame here than Laura would because he should have been completely upfront and honest with Laura about the situation instead of speaking in riddles and sharing the bare minimum information. If he'd told her in the first place that there were 3 werewolves in his family and explained what they were trying to do, things might not have gotten so out of control. But we are getting ahead of ourselves just a little bit. Reaching the perimeter of the manor, Ryan and Laura find a fence surrounding the property, blocking any chance of getting in until they stumble onto another way thanks to some weak boards and a man-made cavern below ground. The fall doesn't kill them thanks to a pool of water, and Laura finds out firsthand just how apt the camp motto is when she realizes the infection from the bite and exposure to water has healed her wounds. And that kind of makes me think. The Hacketts are missing out on a huge opportunity here to do some good in the world. If a bite from a werewolf has the power to heal things like Laura's eye, there has to be a way to use that to help others who might be ailing in various ways. Just hear me out. Imagine you take volunteers who are nearing the end of their lives anyway and get them infected. Then, when they change at the next full moon, you have a lineup of people who can approach a caged or otherwise restrained werewolf to get a bite themselves. After an hour or two, they jump in a bath and get cured of whatever may be wrong with them, and just before the sunrise, the werewolf gets killed off to ensure that no one else has to live with the plague in the short term. Of course, you'd also need to keep another werewolf alive to ensure that you had the ability to turn the sacrificial wolf each month, but I think it could work out nicely. I'm not sure what's worse here though, the fact that I could even come up with that idea so easily, or the fact that it sounds preferable to the American healthcare system. Crazy ideas aside, Ryan and Laura get a little bit of a scare when the sound of a woman whispering the name Silas echoes around them, and Ryan calls it out as the voice of the hag of Hackett's Quarry. We've already got werewolves, Ryan. Do you really think we need ghosts here as well?
This isn't a ghost story, it's a creature feature. It's really happening and you're all in it.
The cave and tunnel complex are actually pretty cool to see, and oh, would you look at that? A tarot card. I'd almost forgotten about those. Kind of weird that we would find the Lover's card down here in this tunnel of... Oh, I see what you did there, game. As if landing on top of Ryan isn't enough awkwardness, Laura ups the ante by taking a minute in their time-limited quest to bring up summer romance with the guy that she's known for all of 30 minutes.
So what's your deal then?
What do you mean?
The whole mysterious, brooding loner thing, it doesn't quite fit with the I love my camp leader vibe.
So I don't fit into the right box, is that what you're saying?
You know that's not what I mean.
I've been coming here for years. You get to know a place and it feels like a second home, you know? I mean, until now.
What about your friend, Caitlin, is that her name? It seems like she looks up to you.
Yeah, she has the hots for me. Dylan does too.
Oh, modesty, thy name is Ryan.
I'm not being smug about it, it's just a fact. They're not exactly secretive about it.
So what about you? Who do you like more.
I don't know. Maybe neither.
Thankfully, as they move on, we find another tarot card, making that 2 in this short stretch, and meaning we're going to score really big at some point. The tunnel finally leads to an old moonshiner hideout below the Hackett mansion, which wouldn't be a bad thing except that Laura and Ryan just happen to be the worst ninjas in the world.
What was that?
Huh?
What was that?
Oh, it's nothing. We got guests downstairs. We don't want any more blood on our hands.
That's alright though, as we managed to snag a third tarot card down here, and at this point, I'm ready to just turn tail and leave these two to figure things out on their own. I mean, it can't really get much better than 3 tarot cards in one spooky tunnel. Though, I'm sure Jacob would beg to differ as Ryan and Laura find him locked up. He asks them to figure out how to unlock the gate, but as we discussed earlier, he's better off locked in a cage than out wandering around where he can push people off bridges. But even finding Jacob takes a backseat as we finally get a peek into the life of the Hackett family with a conversation between Travis and his mother.
Why are you here, Travis? You ought to be out with the others. Like I say, we've been all night long trying to keep those kids safe.
Ma. It's Kaylee. She's dead.
No.
Boys are bringing her in right now.
Now I know you got to screw loose in that cop head of yours. There ain't no way to kill her in her kind of condition.
Silver bullet. She's dead, Ma.
No. God damn it. No. No, no. No, no. Not my granddaughter. Not my only granddaughter. Not my Kaylee. Not my little Kaylee. Not my little Kaylee. Not my little Kaylee. You goddamn piece of shit! What? So, you had those motherfucking counselors in your goddamn jail for 2 whole motherfucking months, right? And you are telling me now that instead of putting a bullet into each one of their little sorry shit-stained brains, you gave them your silver bullet gun and they shot my Kaylee with it? Is that what you are telling me now, Travis?
No more blood on your hands. That's what you said it.
Oh my God, we are way past that now.
Ma, what if it had been me or Bobby? What then?
She was your family. A good boy protects his family. You ain't no good boy.
I wish I could take it all back. I wish I could take it all back, but I can't.
Well, I just don't understand why you couldn't have just taken care of the problem when you had the chance.
Taking care of the problem? Do you hear yourself?
Yes, I hear my goddamn self. I may be old, but I ain't deaf.
I'm a police officer!
Oh, so now I'm blind, you motherfucker. Now I'm blind. Oh, you just flashing that badge around like it's worth $1 million. The only reason you got it is because Hank got killed in a gypsy fire.
Ma.
Don't ma me.
Would you sit down, please?
Don't you tell me what to do.
Please.
And don't you go around. Don't you go around like you better than everybody else, because you ain't.
Mrs. Hackett does a 180, from worrying about keeping blood off their hands to telling Travis how he should have handled the counselors, showing us how grief can change a person's outlook. Now, I'm not saying that Mrs. Hackett was the nicest person in the world to begin with. We saw how she acted earlier with the werewolf in the basement. But she seemed to at least have a level head on her shoulders and actually be at least a little concerned with protecting the counselors. All of that goes out the window when she finds out about Kaylee, and we can't help but feel at least a little sad for her as she seems so distraught at losing her only granddaughter. I could almost imagine a time at some point in the not-too-distant past where the family was whole. Mrs. Hackett might have liked to bake, and she would maybe bake pies and cookies for her grandkids, Kaylee and Caleb, on a regular basis. But something happened at some point, and now the family, while still trying to find some semblance of normalcy, is a shadow of what it once was. I say this because we see how Chris and Travis both seem to care in their own way about what happens to the counselors, with Chris trying to warn them to stay inside and Travis trying to protect Laura and Max, even after they very nearly ruined everything. Even Bobby and the old man, Mr. Hackett, seem to be more concerned with keeping the counselors safe than protecting themselves, as we could see them earlier when Emma stumbled on them as they tried to distract the second werewolf while she ran away. To this point, they could almost even be considered the good guys, even as the counselors aren't aware of what all has happened to keep them safe. But Kaylee's death changes a lot of things. And that's what grief can do if you let it. It can tear you up, guide you into bad decisions, and blind you to the truth of a situation. Laura and the counselors are going to take the brunt of the blame for Haley's death from Mrs. Hackett and the others, but the truth is a lot more complicated, and it isn't the fault of any one person. But we'll have to hold on to that train of thought because there's still a lot more to find out, and some other counselors to catch up with. Caitlin, Abby, and Dylan have made their way back to the lodge and, finding it empty, they head out to the van to try to get it running. But there's someone in there already. At first, they assume it might be Emma and Jacob, trying to keep each other warm. And they're at least partially right, as we watched Emma get in the van earlier. But one little detail we missed with her was the scratch that she received from Max back on the island. That was enough to infect her, and since we last saw her, she's transformed and is out for blood. The werewolf, formerly known as Emma, takes off after Abby, and for some reason I assumed that she'd be fine and decided to have Caitlin and Dylan run off the other way. I'm not really sure what came over me there, but thankfully the end of Abby is fixable. See, there's a feature here that lets us rewind when something horrific happens. And of course I'm going to go back and save her because unlike Emma, I'm not a monster. With Abby safe and sound in the basement, Caitlin turns into even more of a badass as she manages to scare off the werewolf with a few well-placed shots. There is an option here as well to either use regular shells or use the silver shell that Laura gave the group back in the pool house, but there's no way I'm using that silver unless it's absolutely necessary. We aren't Laura. We don't aim to kill without having all the information, and we don't jump to conclusions. After saving everyone's ass, Caitlin assesses the van and finds out just how stupid she was for giving Jacob the idea about stealing the rotor arm. Though I'm not sure she really puts two and two together here, as the subject of why that particular part is missing gets brushed over. I kind of wish they would have given us the chance to have that conversation, but it is what it is. She also has to convince Dylan to accompany her to the nearby scrapyard, and he delivers a line that I imagine some people who watch this channel have uttered at least once.
Okay, well, just because you're using logic to make sense doesn't mean that I'm totally into it.
I might have said this before, but Dylan really is my favorite character in this game. Getting to the scrapyard, they spend some time perusing the pile of metal before wandering into a shop where we can find a receipt from where Travis scrapped Laura and Max's car earlier in the summer, which was kind of a dick move on his part. You're telling me that you couldn't have found anything else at all to do with the car that you more or less stole from the couple that you've been illegally detaining to protect your family's sordid secret. Maybe his mom was right about how he isn't a very good cop. Surprisingly, the search didn't turn up any dead bodies, but we do score another tarot card before the pair finally find a promising vehicle that allows Dylan to show off his mad claw game skills.
So, you ever operated a crane before?
I actually used to be pretty good at the claw game at my local arcade. The kids used to call me the grabber.
Nope,
Oh, and Dylan stumbles across another sign for the Harem Scarum show in the form of a large wooden display that's been shoved in the back corner of the scrapyard for some reason. This one is a little more clear than what we've seen in the past, and it tells us that our friend, the fortune teller, actually has a name. Eliza. I'm pretty sure it isn't that Eliza, but that would make for some amazing lore, and someone should get Lin-Manuel Miranda involved. The world needs Hamilton 2, Eliza's Future, the story of how she learns magic and spends the next couple hundred years traveling with a sideshow. I'd watch it. Fan fiction about Eliza Hamilton aside, Dylan manages to get the car that Caitlin wants to check down. But things can't just be that easy. The motion sensor lights in the scrapyard start lighting up, hinting at something moving through the yard. And Dylan only has a moment to warn Caitlin before a werewolf emerges and goes after her. Lifting the car into the air, Dylan moves the crane all around in an attempt to shake the monster free. But he winds up throwing Caitlin free instead. She only has a moment to try and get away before the werewolf corners her, and just as it's getting ready to strike, Dylan drops the car, crushing the beast for the time being.
Yeah, no sweat. I just can't wait to see who they choose
What?
to play me in the movie about how brave I am.
Don't push it.
With Dylan and Caitlin being safe for now, we catch back up with Laura and Ryan in the Hackett house. Laura has managed to get herself caught, and things aren't looking great as she fights with Mrs. Hackett over a gun before Travis attempts to calm things down, and we discover a connection between Hackett's Quarry and Detroit Become Human, in the form of the Hackett patriarch, Jebediah Hackett. It turns out that he leads a double life, having been a world-renowned artist known as Carl Manfred before apparently moving away from it all to presumably escape the androids that took over Detroit. It's obvious now that he faked his death to get Marcus to leave him alone and moved to upstate New York, where he traveled back in time, opened a quarry, and started a family. That change somehow altered the timeline, and now instead of androids, we have werewolves. Or, he could just be voiced and acted by a renowned artist and actor known as Lance Henriksen, who's had many amazing roles over the course of his career, but that's not as fun as an unfounded conspiracy theory. Bobby joins the party as things are just heating up, pulling Ryan along with him, and the situation seems like it's inescapable at this point. But don't tell Laura there's no way out. She's pretty good at escaping against impossible odds, or at least will pretend that the odds to this point have been impossible for her. Thinking fast, she starts making a weird noise. It's really one of the most annoying things that she could have done, though it does work as a distraction for Ryan as he's able to get away. Thankfully, once that's happened, Ma Hackett does us all a favor and shuts Laura up. It's not permanent since she's, a werewolf, but it'll keep her down for a bit as we follow Ryan in his attempt to escape the Hackett house. Bobby stabbed him before he got away, so that's not helping matters. But we are given the chance to either remove the knife or leave it in. As anyone with even a tiny amount of medical knowledge knows, you never remove the object that's impaling you because it could be cutting into some internal organ or vein, and taking it out could mean bleeding to death in minutes. Though I will say that I second-guessed myself as another tarot card came into view to remind me what was at stake. I suppose the death card had to be somewhere. After snooping around the room for a bit and ultimately hiding from Bobby in a closet, Ryan is able to get away, if only to allow himself to continue running from the Hackett family for a short while. He's not the only one though, as Laura wakes up from her nap with what is undoubtedly a splitting headache. There doesn't seem to be anyone around, and she winds up having free rein to explore the house for a bit, stumbling on another tarot card as she goes, before eventually running into Ma and Pa Hackett once more. They're obviously not thrilled to see her, and she has to fight her way out of the situation while also trying not to turn into a werewolf. As a last-ditch effort, she winds up flipping the switch on an oddly placed breaker box, taking us all the way back down to Jacob as the action apparently opened the door on both his and the werewolf's cells, leading to his demise. We have the option to save him with a rewind, but that's not going to happen. Laura escapes with a little help from Travis, who's just trying to calm the situation as best he can. And as she bolts off into a nearby hallway, we get back to Ryan as he's still trying to escape Bobby. Neither of these counselors seem to stand much of a chance as things just keep getting worse, but he does somehow manage to avoid Bobby long enough to even the odds, using the knife in his side. Pulling the blade out, he plunges it into the big man's chest, and the reaction from Bobby is possibly the best thing I've seen in this game.
Oh, you stabbed me!
Yeah, fucking hurts, don't it?
I ain't never been stabbed before. Leave me alone. Ow, it really hurts. Dad!
While pulling the knife out might have saved his life, it also doomed it, as he's now bleeding profusely and seems to have no way to fix this one. That is, no way until Laura drops in. Using her best superhero entrance, Laura fights the urge to go full dog and manages to save Ryan using a bite just like I mentioned earlier. And I feel like this is just such an untapped medical opportunity. If it can work here, it could work on so many other things, and now I want a sequel that lets us do this. Technically, the choice to bite Ryan is optional, but of course I'm going to do it because there's no downside as far as I can see. Sure, it means that Ryan will have to kill his camp daddy, but that was always going to be the case because you can't reason with a transformed werewolf, and Laura wasn't going to wait until dawn to talk things out with Chris. With a fresh bite making him feel better, Ryan leans on Laura and the two make their way upstairs, going to the attic of the house for some reason, and finally coming face to face with the boss of the dungeon, werewolf Chris Hackett. He's tied to a post, but that isn't enough to keep him in place as he smells the blood of his favorite counselor and breaks free. A weak spot in the attic floor gives way as he makes his way to the pair, and together they free fall through the house, ending up at what I assume is ground level and bringing chaos as everyone is now in one place. We've got Bobby, Mr. and Mrs. Hackett, werewolf Chris, Travis, Ryan, and a very unstable Laura who winds up shedding her skin to become the 6th or maybe 7th werewolf. Honestly, I've lost track and I'm just ready to cash in these tarot cards for whatever prize Eliza has in store. Bobby and the Hackett parents are eaten by Chris as Travis tries like hell to avoid the same fate, with Laura trying to take a bite out of him as well. Ryan has to act fast, securing the shotgun that is thankfully loaded with silver bullets just in time to take Chris out and free everyone from the curse. But that's not really the end because that would be too easy. We still need to turn in our tarot cards, including a very special card that Abby was able to find after being left alone in the basement at the lodge. The Hierophant card triggers Eliza into revealing a deep pain that she's been hiding throughout the game. She was a fortune teller in a traveling show, sharing possible futures with those who would seek knowledge of what might be. She had a son, Silas, who suffered from a rare condition that made him the perfect attraction as a dog boy alongside her act. Kaylee Hackett felt sorry for Silas, believing that no one should spend their life locked in a cage, and she decided one night to try and set him free. But something went wrong. Kaylee's brother Caleb started a fire near a bundle of hay that wound up engulfing the entire sideshow before anyone knew what was happening. The whole thing was an accident. The fire was supposed to be nothing more than a small distraction so Kaylee could get Silas out without being seen. As she tried to process what was happening and figure out a way to get her boy back, Eliza was killed in an explosion. With no way to save Silas before she died, she would spend the next several years searching the woods for the dog boy as a ghost. But she wasn't alone in her search, as after freeing Silas, Kaylee's brother Caleb wound up being bitten and becoming a werewolf. Kaylee and their father would fall into the same fate before all was said and done, and someone in the family would figure out the solution when they found the poem that Travis shared with Laura in the prison. All they needed to do was hunt down and kill Silas during the full moon, and their family would go back to being normal. But that would be easier said than done, as the Hacketts would spend the next several years hunting the white wolf with each full moon, failing each time to find him. Failing until now, that is. Thanks to Laura and Ryan having seen Silas, first on the road as the thing that Max almost hit, and then near the cabins when Dylan and Ryan were trying to send an SOS signal, the trio of Ryan, Laura, and Travis are able to pinpoint where Silas is likely hiding. It turns out he went back to the place where everything started, the cage his mother had him locked in. Heading into the woods, they're able to locate Silas in minutes, effectively solving in one night what the entire Hackett family couldn't figure out in 6 years. And with a single shot, the curse was lifted completely. Of course, the only one left cursed at the time was Caleb, who would have probably been just fine if not for a run-in with Caitlin and a little bunny. That's right, we're bringing this puppy full circle. Remember that little stuffed bunny that Abby found all the way back in episode 1? The bunny that I told you specifically not to forget? Yeah, that little thing winds up saving Caitlin and Dylan. How, you ask? Well, after coming back from the scrapyard, the pair find themselves in the spooky lodge one last time. And it isn't long before something is trying to get in. The Caleb wolf bursts through the chimney, destroying a likely priceless painting in the process. There's a wild chase through the lodge, out onto the roof and back inside, with several close calls as both Caitlin and Dylan run for their lives. Going into the kitchen, they seem to be trapped, with the only way out being blocked by the monster. Caitlin opens the freezer and has the option to either hide inside or to find some way to trap the werewolf in it. Looking around for inspiration, she spots Abby's bag with a little bunny sticking out, and she knows just what to do. Grabbing the toy, she activates it and tosses it into the cold abyss, getting the attention of Caleb, who dashes in after it. Before he can come back out, she shuts and locks the door and celebrates saving both her and Dylan's lives. The freezer is the perfect place to trap the wolf, since there isn't much that can kill it, but the cold box isn't the best place for Caleb after the curse is lifted. He, like everyone else that isn't Travis and the Hackett family, won't make it to see the sunrise, despite the end of the thing that's been plaguing them for 6 years. While the Hacketts may have been devastated, how did our counselors fare? Max, who was on the island most of the night, made it out alive after successfully biting both Emma and Laura. Jacob didn't make it, being mauled to death by Nick, who had that single kill to his name before he wound up surviving the night. As for Jacob's love, Emma made it through the night as well, with no confirmed bites or kills to her name. Abigail made it out alive, making her way to the safety of Chris Hackett's private security bunker after escaping from Emma. Both Caitlin and Dylan survived, of course, and Ryan managed to survive thanks to my patent-pending medical miracle mentioned earlier. And that's pretty much it for the Quarry. We managed to survive the night with only one major casualty, and let's face it, Jacob wasn't exactly the worst one to lose, all things considered. This was one of those games that's a hit or miss for a lot of people, with one of the biggest knocks on it, from what I could tell, focusing on the campy nature, the unrealistic characters, and the fact that it was originally supposed to be a sequel to Until Dawn, which is another massively popular game that I'd like to cover at some point in the future. But to be able to cover games like that, I need your help. Liking the video and subscribing to Lost in Games on YouTube is always a great way to help get more eyes on the videos that I make, and in turn, help me continue diving into games like The Quarry, Detroit Become Human, Red Dead Redemption 2, The Walking Dead, and more. Signing up for a channel membership or joining on Patreon helps me to buy more games like Until Dawn to break down, and to afford storage for the gameplay footage that I use in my videos. Patrons and channel members also get cool perks like having their name on the screen in videos to say thank you. Next week, we'll be having some fun for the first ever Lost in Games Halloween special by discussing ghost hunting through a game called Demonologist and a real-world experience in one of the most haunted buildings in America. So, keep an eye out for that. That's all I've got for now. I want to thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.